Are you passionate about shaping India's future? Keen to find solutions for India's most pressing challenges? Look no further than Takstashila's postgraduate program in public policy. This 48-weekend program will equip you with the knowledge, skills, and network needed to pivot to a meaningful career in public policy. Apply in the link below by June 1st. The program begins June 20th. Hope to see you there.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello everyone, I'm Sarthak and I welcome you to All Things Policy. Seaweed, most of you would have eaten it, used it in your shampoo, or maybe stepped on it at a beach. It turns out it could also be one of India's biggest untapped economic opportunities. And the reason it isn't yet is because of a policy gap. Today's guests have been researching this. They have written a paper on the same. I'm joined by Devleena, founder of Climber Crew, and Shambhavi, who leads Takshashila's advanced biology program. They, along with my colleague Anupam, have mapped what's broken in India's seaweed governance and what it would take to fix it. I will share the paper along with this episode. Hi Devleena, hi Shambhavi. Welcome to All Things Policy.
Hey, Sarthak. Sarthak, you missed Devleena's other affiliation. She's a Takshashila alumni. She's a TP program.
Yes. Before we get into the governance landscape, policy recommendations, and all of these things, I have some basic fundamental questions. First is, what is seaweed and why does it matter?
Great. Thank you, Sarthak. Thank you for having me. Hi, Shambhavi. Great to see you here. So, hi, everybody. Sarthak mentioned about my company, just a one-liner. At Climber Crew, we are a marine biotech company, and we basically process seaweed to make multiple different industry value adds. Now I'll come to Sarthak's question. Basically, seaweed is a marine crop. It is cultivated in coastal waters. It needs a certain salinity range. It needs a certain sea surface temperatures, and it cannot be cultivated anywhere apart from the deep blue sea. But the most interesting bit of seaweed is it's almost like a Swiss Army knife. It makes industry value adds for the food sector, the animal feed, for agriculture, for pharmaceuticals, for multiple different hydrochloride application, sustainable biomaterials, and multiple other climate-like industries. So that is the most exciting bit about seaweed, which makes it very essential, almost like a bio output for industry that are currently upcoming in India. I hope that answers your question. If you have any other questions on the seaweed matter, Sarthak, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah. So also one of the statistics that I saw in your paper, right? So the size of the industry, right? In 2021, it was $17 billion and it is going to be around $97 billion in 2027. So that also shows how this industry has been growing at a massive rate.
Correct. So, as I said, the most exciting bit about seaweed, it's being from a single seaweed species, you get multiple industry output. And globally, we have more than 200,000 species. Commercial cultivation or commercial exploitation has happened, say from a 15 to 20 different species, but it fuels multiple different industries. And all these industries are high growth sector in itself. India alone, the revenue potential for seaweed-based industries are close to 50 billion USD. And as you mentioned about the global potential is close to 100 billion USD. Of course, the global scenario is a little bit more mature than India.
Okay. And you also talk about the opportunities that seaweed cultivation provides, right? There are possibility of having more jobs in this sector. And again, if India is able to do more of seaweed cultivation, it also leads to industrial resilience, import resilience. There are also climate sustainability dimensions here.
Correct. So seaweed is basically, it sits at the nexus of livelihoods, climate, and industrial output. So it covers a vast frame. When it comes to opportunities, you can talk about three different types of opportunities. One is, of course, the economic opportunity, where you're building multiple different biomanufacturing potential in India, which makes it so uniquely relevant and exciting for the Bio E3 policy that has come up. From a blue economy sector, which is being spoken across multiple different, not in India but globally, the potential of blue economy. So seaweed can act as a big booster to the blue economic growth. For India, especially, the economic opportunity also lies in substituting almost 90% of hydrochloride import that goes into pharmaceutical companies, that goes into feed, it goes into food applications. So this is more or less on the economic side, on demand generation, on creating value as multiple different industries. But also there is a large employment opportunity, especially in the marine sectors. Sarthak, there is very few employment opportunity that has come in the last few years, except say the deep sea fishing and various different aspects of the fisheries value chain. So, and all of these, the most of amount of coastal communities as of today is looking for a additional source of income given the state of climate. So more than 4 lakhs or 4.5 lakhs of direct job potential. I mean, I want to underline that bit. It is direct job potential. Indirectly, it goes into multiple other value chains, because it's a large supply chain value chain in the seaweed economy. And one thing that we have closely observed is it drives a lot of women livelihoods. It's not only just fishermen. Out of 20 people who work in the seaweed farm, 15 are women. So it drives women livelihood. And the other bit, I would say, apart from economic and livelihood, is a strategic opportunity for India as a country. Import resilience, I've already spoken about. Climate adaptation. From cradle to grave, seaweed is a completely biodegradable, biocompostable material requiring no fertilizer, just grows out of seawater and sunshine. Everything that you produce out of seaweed is very, very earth friendly. So it has multiple different opportunities that can be grown from a single crop.
Yeah. But one thing that you mentioned is right now, India accounts for just 1% of the global production, right? These are all the different kinds of opportunities, but it seems these opportunities have not been leveraged as of now. So, what has been the policy approach till this point of time? Why it has not been leveraged, maybe?
Yeah, it's strange. If you imagine, we have ample amount of ocean space across India, around India, and we have not been able to really scale this activity up. And whatever you're cultivating in seaweed, I would classify those as a pilot activity compared to any other Southeast Asian countries where the crop has been growing and feeding into multiple business potentials. And where we come from is analyzing, and if you really look at it, we have the policy momentum. You have Niti Aayog policy paper on seaweed cultivation released a few years back. You have fisherman intent. Fisher folks are increasingly looking for additional income. You have your industrial support. But even though we're not scaling, and we believe the real bottleneck, and what is the paper is about, the real bottleneck is in the absence of a secure, transferable, mortgageable marine rights, in the essentially a property right, which removes the uncertainty, tagged to the marine sector production. So we believe that's one thing that is holding back further scaling of this sector.
Yeah. So, in fact, I want to discuss this property rights thing in details. But before that, Shambhavi, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, one of the reasons why this paper actually came along is that, Devleena and I have been talking for a while about seaweeds, and it has been incredibly frustrating for me as someone who's everyone knows, like, I promote the bioeconomy right, left and center everywhere I go. I'm like, India should be focusing on the bioeconomy, and I found it particularly frustrating because here we have the just to be doing seaweeds. We have understood that the actual processing of seaweeds is no rocket science per se. And we have the downstream industries, biostimulants, food manufacturers, etc., who can use the seaweed if it is generated in India. Right now, they're all importing, so there might be a bit of supply chain change there. But in fact, the entire ecosystem apart from the seaweed exists, and the resources to make the seaweed cultivation in India also exist. So apart from a few, I think reports where there was concerns that if we start cultivating seaweed, it could damage our corals, or there could be invasiveness. And again, there have been several studies which have shown that it doesn't happen everywhere, that there are zones that you can demarcate and you can actually grow seaweed safely without impacting the marine ecosystem, etc. But again, we have seen misreadings of that. We have seen concerns that no, if you grow seaweed somewhere of any coast, then it could, there might be invasiveness happening. um, Apart from those concerns, it has been very strange to me on why seaweeds have not been grown in India. Like Devleena pointed out, over the past few years, we have actually seen a change in the policy approach. We have seen a lot more enthusiasm about cultivating seaweed. Karnataka state, for example, in this year's budget said that they're going to think of a marine ocean policy, and seaweed is going to be part of that. So there are exciting times happening. BioE3 talks about seaweed, which is a now new overarching policy for the entire bioeconomy. Right? It talks about seaweed being a priority. So clearly, the change is happening, and really optimistic about how we will leverage this particular substrate for the bioeconomy.
And there been any efforts apart from this, right? There are some schemes like Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana and all these things. How have they been dealing with seaweed cultivation?
Okay, so see, PMMSY has been providing subsidies to fishing community members for seaweed cultivation. But those subsidies typically come in the form of, if you buy a raft, a part of it is paid by the department. If you buy ropes, so the cost of rafts and ropes are paid by the department. But that is typically not a model which can boost scale. It does not address the property rights, does not, and I can break it down, but I'll come to the property right piece a bit. Just addressing what Shambhavi just mentioned, we definitely seeing some policy momentum here. There are multiple different initiatives the government has taken apart from CA. It has made importing easier. It has made your in multiple different cases the seaweed value as it goes into industry. Those policies have come in place, but even then there has been no real momentum on the cultivation scale.
So, Devlin and I were talking about property rights, and in fact, in the beginning, also you mentioned that seems to be the biggest policy gap. So, what is that? What do you mean by property rights here? And I'm assuming that you have used a framework which tells you that property right is not just one thing; it is a bundle of rights. So, in case of India, which of these rights within that bundle of rights the seaweed farmers have? Which are those things which they don't have?
Right. So Sarthak, if you look at it, a seaweed farmer as of today has a permit to go into the ocean. So you have a permit, you can go and cultivate. But there's nothing stopping from anybody else coming to that seaweed farm office and, not only damaging, but also, putting in his own rafts. There is nothing that the seaweed farmer can take to the bank and say, hey, look, I want to scale. I want to, mortgage this piece to, get some loans. Furthermore, there is no way for the seaweed farmer to really transfer the rights to his or her children. So, in essence, it's not transferable, it's not mortgageable. It does not help you any way to have exclusive rights on that area in the ocean. So essentially, we talk about that. This absence of it is what we believe has been a blockage to any kind of scale. And what we are proposing here is a secure, transferable, mortgageable, scalable property rights, which with georeferenced. And Shambhavi mentioned about the fact that there is an inhibition to seaweed cultivators on certain species, but this cannot be a blanket rule. You need to have certain understanding of your marine space. You need to have a marine spatial policy where you're studying parts of the ocean, being able to understand the ocean properties along with the marine spatial policy. So we believe the real bottleneck is in the absence of the secure, transferable, mortgageable marine rights. Let me break it down for you. What we essentially mean is that a seaweed farmer as of today has a permit to go to a certain space in the ocean and cultivate seaweed. But there's nothing that is allowing him to use that space, go to a bank and get finance for cultivating more. There is nothing that is stopping anybody else to coming and owning that piece of the ocean. And also, there is no such form or nature where he can transfer this area to his or her sons and daughters. So we believe addressing that will go a long way. And what we are suggesting is a seaweed ocean lease, SOL, which is a georeferenced area. It provides exclusivity, it provides long-term assurance to a cultivator. It's of course renewable as well, where you can renew it basis yearly checks. And the four key reforms that 4 to 5
Devleena,
key.
just one second. I have one quick question on this before we go to the license part.
Sure.
So when you mentioned that the farmers can go and they have an access right? So they can go to a place. But how do they get that access? Is it under certain law right now? The second thing is, again, they have the rights to extract seaweed from wherever they are cultivating. So again, how absolute is that right? Can someone else come and again extract those resources? Also, when I was going through it, right, you mentioned that they don't have the management rights, in the sense that they might not be able to decide, or they don't have the right to decide what kind of species they can cultivate. So am I correct in my thing? And what are your thoughts on, is there anything additional that you want to add here?
Sure. So basically, Sarthak, what happens is that if you're a fisherman, you have you get a permit to fish, and for all fishermen through PMMSY, government is giving more or less subsidies that are mandated for go and cultivating seaweed. So as a fisherman, you have all the right to go and cultivate seaweed.
Okay.
So you can call it a right, you can call it a permit, but it is not a property right per se.
Okay.
As of 2023, there was a revision to the Coastal Aquaculture Act, the CA Act, which essentially included seaweed in the framework where they included shrimp farming as well. So shrimp farming as of was part of CA, has been part of CA for some time. You see, shrimp farmers have started scaling the moment this land rights or ocean rights became much clearer. The infrastructures could be financed, the assets could be collateralized, long-term investments started coming in. A similar form is what is needed in a seaweed cultivation. So to answer your question shortly, a farmer does have a permit to go and cultivate seaweed. But beyond that, to really scale those cultivation, there is no such way for demarcating a property and having an exclusive right to a certain place in the ocean.
Okay, thanks for this. So you are recommending that they should have the access. Whatever is already there, it should be retained. Similarly, when it comes to extracting resources, the withdrawal, that property right, those part of the property rights, that should also be retained. And apart from that, management rights, some sort of exclusivity, all these things should be granted to them, which is not there right now.
Correct. So the Ostrom property rights framework, which we have referenced, talks about the access, withdrawal, management, exclusivity, alienation. We believe that is all should come into the property rights framework.
I just want to add, so when we think about seaweeds and when we think about fishermen and farming, we might be thinking, this is something happening off the coast, like you can see the seaweed farms maybe sitting on the beach. We actually have a 12 nautical mile range, right, from land into the ocean that belongs to India. And the idea is that you can actually go deep into the sea and still grow seaweed. So it is not just don't imagine that these property rights are only for like very small land parcels. We're talking about huge hectares and hectares of areas to which these property rights can be applied to. So I think for a lot of people, when we think about shrimp farming, etc., you think about ponds and small cages, but seaweed farming can grow really, really long miles.
Correct.
So Shambhavi, I have one question to that. I'll come to it in a bit. Devleena, you were talking about the different rights, right? So one of the thing was currently they don't have management rights, and one of the recommendation is they should have, the seaweed farmer should have management rights, and they should have some tenure over there. So how do you think this is going to change the scenario?
Okay. So just underlining the Ostrom's property framework, we basically say, the rights typically classified under, 5 different classes: the access, withdrawal, management, exclusivity, alienation. So all of this should be part of this property rights framework. And essentially, Sarthak, what's happening is, without all of these, it's not only about farmers cultivating, but we're also looking at private industries coming in to really scale this sector, which we have seen how it has boosted the Southeast Asian nations' seaweed cultivation. If you go to Malaysia, if you go to Indonesia, if you go to China, you'll see private industry members coming and being able to block certain hectares, multiple hectares of land in the ocean and cultivate. Similar is a case with Norwegian countries like Norway and Scotland. So the issue is not really cultivating seaweed, as Shambhavi mentioned earlier. So it's not a rocket science. You can cultivate seaweed. The issue is basically financing it in a way that where you can not only cultivate, but not cultivate with, say, traditional methods, bring in the latest automation tools, and all of these needs money.
Yeah.
And for that money, you need certainty. And for that, and to all of that, we believe the SOL framework should be a good starting point.
Yeah. So basically, if you are getting it on lease for a sufficiently long duration, you have incentives to invest in your farming practices. You will be using better technology, maybe.
Correct.
So this one, again, thought question here. I have no idea about it. Is there any externality associated with seaweed farming? And let's say there is someone who now has rights to farm for the next 25 years, right? That individual maybe will be using some invasive species, or maybe use some method which can pollute the marine environment. Are there any such risks? I have no idea. I'm just asking this.
No, sure. That's an interesting question. And you'll see in the paper, we have made a reference to marine spatial policy, which essentially is something that okay, let me break down what is a marine spatial policy. You have this large area of Indian Ocean surrounding India. The ocean next to, say, a Puri beach in Orissa versus an ocean next to somewhere in Karwar beach in Karnataka versus something in Tamil Nadu, the properties are very different. In some places you have corals, in some places you do not have corals. In some places the seabed is rocky, in some places the seabed is very is muddy. So we need to consider all of it before taking a decision of what to really do there. What crop to cultivate, whether or not to cultivate, how much distance from the shore. So there are multiple different marine parameters, marine conditions, weather condition, biogeochemical parameters present in the ocean is essentially needed. We need to monitor it, analyze it before taking a decision. So to answer your question, this is the first step that will let you segregate or hotspot this area, saying this is the area where I'm going to cultivate, say, a cup of ficus seaweed, which is a species of seaweed. This is the area where I can cultivate gracilaria. But we have some marine protected zones where you cannot cultivate. All of this also are part of your marine spatial policy, which is very important for a state to conduct. Because fisheries is a state subject. So every state in India should have this marine spatial policy done, where they understand, allocate areas for, say, a seaweed farming or for such marine fishing, and so on and so forth. It will be interesting for you to know that some areas in India like Lakshadweep, you cannot grow copper ficus because it's rich in corals. Where we believe what Shambhavi was mentioning earlier, copper ficus is invasive to corals. So government has banned copper ficus production there. So, but all of this is a conscious decision that you take after studying the various marine environmental properties.
Okay, so the state has an important role to play here when it comes to deciding what kind of species can be cultivated in different marine environments.
I wanted to add something to the reimagination of the water as land in many ways, right? I think that's the easiest way for us to understand. So, in addition to the fact that we have all of these species, etc., we also have the same water being purposed for many things, right? So, but it will be used by the Indian Navy, and I'm sure there are security zones where we can't go in by tourists and all of these cruise ships, which currently I think cruise ships need to be banned. But anyways, that's a separate conversation. But we have tourism and cruise ships going around. So there are a lot of other users of the same space. Like Devleena mentioned, not all spaces will be suitable for growing seaweeds as well. And that makes that marine spatial policy very important. We have seen from other countries where conflicts have arisen because where seaweed farmers thought they would get best seaweed was not allocated to them for farming, and they kind of started encroaching upon other areas where there might be tourist things happening, right? And so we have seen those conflicts already happen across the world. So it's very important that when we do this correct right from the beginning.
Yeah, so Shambhavi, this was my 12 nautical miles question.
Okay.
Again, union and state both will be required here in this case. So how do you see this happening? Is there a possibility of conflict here? How, if there is a conflict, how can it be resolved? Are they on the same page right now?
So right now we have seen optimistic approaches from we are seeing some states trying to create a marine policy. Karnataka, like I mentioned, made it very clear in their budget statement for this year that something around a marine spatial use policy is something that they want to work on. How much they are doing this together, I don't know. I would assume there will be a priority structure on who gets the first use of the water body. I'm sure national security will triumph everything else. And eventually, it then will boil down to what are the local resources, what are the local communities doing and would require for their income, right? So I think that's the tension that needs to be really resolved. It would be very difficult to do this on a blanket policy point of view, which is why I think the state is a much better judge of what its requirement and what its marine resources can be best used for. So yeah, I think national security will come apex, and then there has to be a priority structure on what is the most benefit that you can derive from a water mass based on the suitability, based on existing, say, tourist applications. Mumbai, for example, where I am in, big port, right? It will be very difficult to start seaweed generation when you have all of this transport that is happening around here. But a little further south, where Tamakru operates, for example, Ratnagiri, etc., bigger opportunity for growing seaweed.
Yeah, just to add to what Shambhavi was saying, the permission per se or the entire administrative structure is there's a lot of overlaps there. The Coastal Aquaculture Authority is a pan India authority. Then you have the Fisheries Department, which is a state specific department. You have the CRZ authority. Then you have, we ourselves need to take permission from the state Jilla Parishad, Gram Panchayat, from the various different maritime ports. In certain state, we have also had to take permission from the customs. Then your local communities, coastal communities, your cooperatives. It's not more for permission, but letting them know so that there is no conflict later on. So there is a lot of overlap. I believe beyond this paper, after we have established the property rights frameworks, there is much more work to do, where we can have the flow or the SOPs for really having how to really go about the permission process.
It's quite interesting because I think the government is quite clear when it comes to land or even the seabed, right? So Gujarat government, for example, has given leases for extraction of bromine from seabed. That's quite well understood. The Indian government very recently signed a framework with an international UN body to be able to extract minerals from seabeds. So when there's actually seabed, which is land technically, I think we understand it very well. But when it's the surface of the water, suddenly we are like, what do you mean property rights? This is not land, this is water.
So again, an associated question here. Since you are recommending a lease-based system, right? If India moves to a lease-based system, do you think anyone's turf will be disrupted? I mean, from whom you are going to get that opposition, right? And is that a political obstacle?
So again, something that we have mentioned and what we have also experienced in our own work for the last 3 years, there are community conflicts that comes into a certain cultivated area. There are conflicts between a seaweed farmer and say a marine a fisherman. There are conflicts between two different FPOs. So there are chances of having such conflicts. And it's very essential to really have a way to resolve this. What we suggest, and I'm sure there will be other recommendations that we can look for later, but what we suggest is, at least from the community perspective, we are giving them the right of first refusal So the communities get the preference to really apply for that area for. So whenever this, the leasing framework is in action, the communities can apply for it. We have seen that a little bit in play in Gujarat. In the state of Gujarat, the government has come up with a link called iKherut portal. It's an online portal where a community, a cooperative, and an individual can put in applications. But the department will first consider all the community made applications and then only go into the private industry or a higher cooperative. So I believe that's one way of holistically having less conflicts later.
So, I come from a family of urban planners. My father was part of the Brain Mumbai Municipal Corporation. And everywhere I go, obviously, I hear about how badly planned India's cities are. I think this is our one chance of getting some spatial planning correct, right from the beginning, to give thought to how India can best use its marine resources, whether they are at the seabed, whether it's tourism, whether it's seaweed, whether it's security, right? Everything can be planned very nicely, thoughtfully, from a futuristic point of view for with good marine spatial planning. So I'm actually looking forward to see how India utilizes that opportunity.
Thanks, Shambhavi. I think, we as a company, we've been working in the blue economy sector for such a long time that hearing somebody else talking about it really kind of lifts my spirit, and I feel happy about to hear this. But, my take, the last final thought that I would like to, share is, see, we have clearly established that India does not lack in ambition when it comes to seaweed. Be it be coastal communities, be it be the union, be it be the department, or be it be the, the industry as well. But the infrastructure and the financial economic model is in place. But I would also go on further to say that the union government has done multiple things, be it be from the PMMSY, giving grants, giving subsidies, boosting your coastal communities, be it be establishing this coastal aquaculture or the CEA framework to be able to allow us to even think about this, the SOL policy paper that we have written. It's definitely now the turn for the state government, the fisheries department in all coastal states of India to really take this forward, to adopt it, to have application windows open where fishermen, fisherwomen, people like us and cooperatives can apply and, start at least, see some form and nature of scaled up seaweed cultivation in India. Along with the marine spatial policy that Shambhavi mentioned, I think that should be the, the first building block that all states needs to get started with.
Thank you, Devleena. Thank you, Shambhavi, for taking us through the entire seaweed cultivation governance landscape, policy gap, and what can be done better. Hope, again, contribution of seaweed cultivation to Indian economy increases, India's contribution to the global economy increases. Thanks to our listeners for tuning in. I would highly recommend, please go through their proposals, the paper we are sharing along with this episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.